So I guess small town is the biggest one that I do. I grew up in a small town up in northern Michigan. All of my books are based in my hometown. So you get to see a lot of my home in my books, which is really fun. I'm such a sucker for an age gap. Like, sold. I'm done. Toast. Single moms, single dads, I really love. I'm actually working on a single dad right now. It's my first single dad romance, and I am just so in love with them. Brother's best friend, father's best friend, like those forbidden ones. I love those. So yeah, those are some of my favorites, and I can't seem to stay away from them. But yeah, I don't know. Those are probably the main ones.
For DK, on the topic of small towns, what draws you to write romance stories in that setting of a small town?
Sometimes it's the situation, because I've done both. Like I said, this one was city romance, and then this series is small town. So I think when it first started, when I first writing, I had just moved back home. I was living overseas. And I think because I kept hearing negative stuff about Detroit, I wanted to write a series that said, like, no, look, like, this is a fun this is a fun city, this is a fun state. You guys need to see it is unique and it's original and people are enjoying it and falling in love there. So it was kind of that. So I wrote that series, and then right around then COVID hit, and no more going into the city. I lived right outside of it, and so I grew up, my dad lives out in the Irish Hills area, moved out there when I was younger, so I spent a lot of time on the lakes, a lot of time in the small town, so I had a lot of good memories of just sunshine summers on the lake in the small town, and it was like a happy, comforting place. So I kept picturing these, you know, two kids on the dock who later I realized were going to become best friends, and they were neighbors, and I just loved that comforting vibe of being in a small town. So then the more that I wrote it, that's what appealed to me, and why I'm still writing it is it's like when you get into a small town series, it's almost like that town becomes another character. So it started out as a comfort piece, but then I just love how everybody knows everything and it winds into it. There's good and bad in a small town. But again, it's like a character, and I just really, really like that.
Okay, and then for Wren, one of your characters, Stevie, is a single parent. Do you think that there is still that stigma attached to being a single parent, or do you think that a lot of women who are single parents want to see themselves represented in fiction? Like, do you think that there's still a stigma attached to it now, and why do you think it's important to write that?
I would definitely hope there's not that stigma anymore, because I feel like even if you're not a single parent yourself, I think every single person knows a single parent or somebody that has been a single parent at one point in their life, and I think it's a big, I don't know, there's people very close to me in my life that are in situations that they shouldn't be because of the kids, that they don't want to have a broken home, they don't want to separate, they don't want to, but like, you still deserve your happy ending. Even if you have a kid, and your kid deserves you to be happy also. So like, I think it's just another layer of relatability in that. I mean, things don't always work out the way you planned.
And then for Courtney, how do you create successful relationships in your books?
That's a good question. I feel like a lot of successful relationships for me when I'm writing start as friendships. So a lot of my books, they start as friends and move to lovers, and there's just something about getting to know someone on a deeper level before you like enter that relationship. So I feel like a lot of the successful relationships have a very strong foundation that they've built, and that allows them to blossom into what they are at the end.
For Megan, what is your process for writing standalone novels in an interconnected world, and can you explain how your novels are connected?
Yeah, so to start, all of my novels, regardless of what series they're a part of, are connected in some way. And really, it all goes back to The Curveball, which was my debut novel. That sort of kind of set the tone and serves as a roadmap for how I connect characters. That one was fairly simple. It was a sibling series, so every sibling in the family gets a book. That wasn't the original plan, but when I did 2, it's like, I gotta do the other 2, they all need a book, right? And that led to the next series where a couple of characters from the first series are sprinkled in, and we see them because they were my first ones, and they're my favorite, if I can say that. And they kind of help to link the universes together just by being there. So you know when you see Jake and Penelope show up in Perfect Game or Game 7, oh, this is the same world as the first series. And there's some comfort in being interconnected and kind of sticking with these familiar characters while still giving the spotlight to new leads. I enjoy when I'm writing, just sprinkling in references to older characters or other books, just to show that the worlds kind of all go together.
For Danielle, your book covers, I should have warned you to bring more books, I'm very sorry about her book covers. You have to go to her table and see, they're very fun and cute and sexy. I would love to hear about the process for choosing what cover, will be on your upcoming title.
You can see that one book is sexy too. That guy's hot.
This is my newest one. This is Honor. Whiskey Ginger Goods. She did all 3 of the covers for this series. But it really just depends on the series itself. So I started out with model covers. So the original covers that I have for my Petoskey Stone series are all male models. I'm in love with every single one of them, but I do know that a lot of readers, especially today, love the discreet covers. They want those covers that are going to look pretty on their shelves and something that they can take out in public and not have somebody give them the side eye. So I do a lot of times have dual covers. My novella, my holiday series, those are just discrete covers. Each one is themed for each holiday that it represents. I am doing some illustrated special editions for those, so I'm super excited about those. But I don't know, it just depends. It fully depends on the series. Like my new series that I'm coming out with in May, the first one comes out. I have a discrete series for that cover, and it's going to be floral. It's very pretty. It's called Bliss Garden, so it's all very feminine. But Lonnie, Whiskey Ginger, is also doing those covers, so she's going to be making me some nice, sexy ones as well. So it just depends on the series and just the vibes of the story itself.
All right, so at this time, I'm going to open it up to audience questions. I have stickers for those who ask questions, because I will bribe you to ask questions. So does anyone have a question that they want to ask? Others? Yes.
Yeah, my question is for Megan. So I feel like sports romances are like relatively newer subgenre. Do you feel like you get a lot of pushback from like the sports world in real life? And if so, how do you kind of navigate that?
So one of the big things that I did with this series was actually created teams. I do have a Detroit team, they're the Mustangs, just so that there isn't like a direct link between my books and maybe a real entity, right? Because that would be really easy to get some pushback on. Thankfully, I have not gotten, any big criticism from anybody who's like, I was a baseball writer and this isn't at all accurate, So I haven't really come up against anything like that yet. Maybe, my book will fall into somebody's hands someday that actually, is in one of the roles I've written, but not yet. Not as of right now.
It'll happen like today.
Anyone else have questions?
how do you choose, like if they're not siblings, how do you choose what characters you're going to write a book about?
They choose.
Yes.
Usually when I'm writing, because I do the same thing, standalone, interconnected, like I'm writing it, and then one of them just keeps coming forth, and then had to do it. Like my newest one, this one actually comes out on the 28th. Like Paloma, she would just demanded her story to be told. And at first I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll do a novella. Yeah, that didn't happen. So it's kind of, for me, they tell me what they want, that when they want their story told.
I'd say for my first series, it was, I didn't plan ahead of time, so I would not suggest that. But this new series, I did plan, and I'm actually not doing any siblings, but it's all friends. And so I have Millie, and she's best friends with Florence, Riley, and Ava. And then Grant is the lonesome man in the group. But so it's like a friend group that I'm doing a book for each one.
Sometimes it helps to write a baseball team. So in Perfect Game, I have Max, he's a pitcher. He's very grumpy, and as you can see, he's also tattooed. Grumpy tattooed man, we love. I won't give many spoilers for Game 7 because, anyway. Max has a teammate in Perfect Game who was begging to have his story told. And he's in both Perfect Game and Game 7, and Designated Hitter, his book will be coming out in March. So it's like DK said, sometimes they just tell you that their story's gonna be told.
No. Anyone else question? Yes, go ahead. I guess this is kind of for you, Danielle. I've read Honor, but I just kind of wondered what your research process was like because, you're writing about a specialty, and I wouldn't have known anything about it, and you guys had like a glossary